I need to exchange some books.
Come.
Well, girl.
You'll need a Jane Austen.
A Virginia Woolf.
And an Agatha Christie. For reading.
Hey guys, Smiling Reviewer here, and today we are going to talk about Gunpowder Milkshake. Gunpowder Milkshake is Netflix's newest action film from Israeli director Navot Papushado. Hope I'm pronouncing that correct. And it's about an assassin played by Gillan who works for a company called The Firm, and on one of her contracts, she stumbles upon an 8-year-old girl who she goes out of her way to save despite being ordered against it. So now her and this 8-year-old girl are on the run from this organization who's trying to kill them both. This movie was a pretty fun time actually. While it definitely wasn't a perfect movie, I enjoyed myself more than I was expecting. And a reason for that was this film's tone. It was less serious than I was expecting, and it embraced the more fun comedic side, especially with the action scenes, and it was similar in tone to this year's Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. It also has such a stellar cast of women, which was the main reason I was very excited for this movie. We've got Gillan as our lead, who you might know as Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was looking forward to her taking on a leading role because I mainly only know her from the Guardians of the Galaxy films and the new Giamatti films. And she was honestly just fine in this movie. She did a pretty great job in the action scenes, and mostly in general she was good. But some scenes, she just seemed a bit wooden and like very emotionless, and I couldn't really tell if that was an intentional choice or not, which was a bit awkward at times. But the writing also definitely did not do her any favors either, unfortunately. And that was one of my main gripes with this movie. The dialogue is very subpar, and some of it is also just downright questionable, like some very cringeworthy dialogue in here, with very little nuance. But that also wasn't what I came to this movie for. What I came to this movie for was the action. The action in this movie was overall pretty good. I'm very glad that they made good use of Angela Bassett, Michelle Yeoh, and Carla Gugino, because why else would you hire these three amazing actresses? Michelle Yeoh in particular, I have such a soft spot for, as I think she's just the epitome of a badass woman, so it was a lot of fun getting to see her kick ass in this one. But yeah, I'm glad that at least each of these ladies got a cool action scene each. Definitely would have loved to have seen more of them, and definitely would love a prequel film based on this group of librarians, because I would have liked to get to know them a bit more, but the movie seems to intentionally keep their backgrounds and history a bit in the shadows, a bit too much for my liking, to be completely honest. Like, we know they have a history with our lead character's mum, and we also know that they are librarians at this library that actually has guns hidden in all the books. And that's about the extent of the characterization we get from these guys, unfortunately. And that was such a shame, to be honest, because they could have been the most interesting characters of the movie. They almost were, despite the poor writing. But that's because you've got three powerhouses of actresses portraying them. Lena Headey was also a lot of fun in this movie. She gave us one of the greatest villains with her performance as Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. So since that ended, I've been looking forward to whatever future projects she takes on. And while her role in this is not as in-depth as Cersei, she definitely has a chance to have some fun in this movie and kick some serious ass, and I thought she did a really great job. But yeah, back to the action scenes. Some action scenes were definitely better than others in terms of the way they were filmed and edited together. Some of the action scenes felt a lot more fluid, whereas some feel like they almost borderline the rapid cutting, I'm struggling to follow what's going on style. But it never reached a level where it really bothered me. And I think a reason for that is because some of the action scenes were a lot more creative than I was expecting, and I really loved that. I love it when directors get really creative with their action scenes, especially when you have a character like our lead in this one, where she's meant to be a John Wick-like character who we know can just absolutely destroy anyone who comes her way. And when you have a character like that, it seems like the only way you can make the action scenes really creative is either pitting them against someone who is equally or more so skilled, or outnumbering them with a lot of bad guys, or my favorite way, majorly disadvantage them in a creative fashion, where they have to metaphorically fight blindfolded or with one arm tied behind their back. In Gunpowder Milkshake, there's a great action sequence in a hospital where our lead gets injected with something that causes her to lose function in both her arms. And to counteract that, she gets the little girl to sticky tape the gun and knife in her hands. And the action scene that precedes was just so comical and definitely wouldn't fit in a movie like John Wick. But it fits in a movie like this and it worked so well. It was such an awesome idea for an action scene where they otherwise could have just had her just casually kill them in a more traditional way. But yeah, even though this scene was definitely a bit dumb, I don't think it ever tried to be realistic, and it just embraced the absurdity of the scene. It was also such a cool, unique idea I hadn't seen before, so I give props to the director for not always taking the obvious route for the action scenes. A lot of this movie's criticisms from others that I've seen seem to be that it tries to be a bit too hard like a John Wick film, and also has some Tarantino-esque vibes with the stylized violence. And I definitely did notice these comparisons while I was watching it, but to me, at least, I don't think it ever felt like offensively similar or like a blatant copy or anything. And honestly, I don't blame the filmmaker for drawing a lot of inspiration from Chad Stahelski and even Tarantino. These guys are masters at what they do. Why wouldn't you? John Wick is arguably one of the best action franchises of this generation for a reason. If the result is more filmmakers wanting to shoot cleaner and creative action scenes, I am all for it. This movie also definitely has a distinct style, which for the most part I loved because it's such an aesthetic looking movie. It really uses its lighting in some scenes in some creative ways, and the movie also just has like a neon glow to it, which was really cool and I liked it. But it sometimes did feel like it was style over substance a lot, which was a bit of a shame because Navot Papushado not only directed this movie, but he also wrote it. And it seems like from a directing standpoint, he seemed to have a good visual idea in his head on what he wanted the aesthetic of this movie to be and how he wanted to use the lighting in a stylish, almost neo-noir fashion. But the story and the dialogue just don't mesh with this aesthetic. And it seems like a lot less care was put into these two things. So I think this movie could have benefited from another writer potentially. Navot Papushado reminds me a lot of Zack Snyder in the sense that Zack Snyder is such a unique, visually creative director, but his writing and storytelling is never quite to the same standard as his visual directing. But all in all, Gunpowder Milkshake was much more fun than I was expecting and had some creative and violent action scenes that I had a great time with. So Gunpowder Milkshake gets a 7.5 out of 10 for me. But anyways, thanks for watching guys. I enjoyed talking to you guys about this one. Don't forget to leave a like if you did and subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!